Hello and welcome to the Connected Community Podcast. I'm so excited to have my guest today, Sarah Malone, who is a trauma and IFS informed clinical hypnotherapist, and she runs retreats. And today we talk about spiritual bypassing. I feel like this is such an important topic, and we really look at it at every angle. What are some red flags to look at? How do you know if somebody's spiritual bypassing? If you're looking for a mentor or a teacher or a retreat to join, what are some things to look for? What are some things that you want that retreat to have? And what are some red flags? This is a beautiful episode packed full of information. I enjoyed this episode so much, and I hope you'll gain some beautiful insights. And if you're enjoying them, please take a moment to give us a like, a share, and a subscribe. So much gratitude if you leave a comment or a review. And I'm going to hop on in with Sarah. Enjoy. Hello, and welcome to the Connected Community Podcast, a place to explore possibility through mindfulness, movement, and self-discovery. Our intention is to deliver insight and inspiration while fostering conversations that are genuine, unfiltered, and deeply human. We hope you will enjoy today's episode. Hi, Sarah. Welcome to the Connected Community Podcast.
Oh, it's good to be back with you, Nikki. We've had quite the show here.
Yes, we're laughing because we've had like massive amounts of technical issues, and now we're re-recording this podcast. But so that makes we're going to be pros this time.
Yeah, we've had enough dry runs now where I think we've got it down.
We've got it down. Yeah. Yes, technology has not been working in our favor, but today we're going to nail it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm excited about our topic. We're talking about spiritual bypassing. I feel like this is such an important topic. And I think a lot of people have heard this word or these words, but they're not really sure what it means. And so we're just going to deep dive into this topic. When we talk about spiritual bypassing, what does that mean to you?
So, and it's funny, I was going to make a joke because I was going to say everything happens for a reason, which is such a typical response from somebody who's spiritual bypassing, in
It's
my own
divine.
verbiage. Yeah, it's just divine timing. Yeah, everything is perfect. The way that I describe spiritual bypassing is that we use the mask of spirituality, spiritual beliefs, spiritual language, spiritual lingo to kind of avoid real things, real emotions, real circumstances in life, really the human aspect of what it means to be in relationship with yourself and in relationship with other people. So we just kind of avoid those harder things by using our spirituality.
Yeah. Yeah. And this reminds me of a podcast. There's very few, I think I've just released 90 episodes and I've only, I think, scrapped 2 podcasts. But it makes me think of there was one that I recorded with somebody and it was a really deep topic. And they were talking and they were using all this language and all this lingo and all of this verbiage that sounded really good, but they weren't connected to it. It was really strange.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't connected to it from a heart space. And so it felt like they were just kind of repeating information, but it wasn't coming from a place of wisdom and insight.
Yeah.
And that was a really hard decision to scrap that podcast. But it felt like there was this massive disconnect and this divide. And so as you're speaking, it made me have that memory pop
Mm.
up.
Wow. That's such a good point. I've had similar experiences with people in person, gurus, that consider themselves gurus. It felt a little bit the same where it's like all of what you're saying sounds really nice and tantalizing, but something's missing here. And that's like what you said, the wisdom, the embodiment piece, the I'm putting all of this into practice and I've been through it, right? I want to be with somebody especially in the spiritual space, that knows what it means to be fully human, that knows what it means to experience all of these things that we're talking about, not necessarily um, situations in life, because we all have different circumstances, but the feelings. To
Mm-hmm.
be connected with all of those array of feelings. Otherwise, I don't know that you can really be with me and talk with me if I'm ever experiencing that. And it kind of creates this separation. And I think this is why people do it,
Yeah.
right? It creates this very natural human thing to do that we want to, especially in the spiritual path or personal growth. The natural tendency and desire would be to put myself above, like I'm climbing up the ladder,
Mhm.
which means if I'm climbing up the ladder, then inevitably at some point I'm going to be above somebody and they're going to be below me.
Yeah.
So this climb up the ladder towards spirituality, towards, transcending, awakening all of these things, it puts us into a position of superiority. And that feels very good for the ego, which is the exact opposite
Yeah.
of what true spirituality is.
Yeah. Well, it makes me think about spiritual leaders like Thich Nhat Hanh and Ram Dass and like people that are really famous. They would never say that they reached the top of the ladder, and they would not feel any different than somebody that had no spirituality in their life. There's not that dualism of them and me. It's a feeling of more connected to all.
Connectedness. Absolutely agree. And even to go further into that, there's a sense of humility with just the individuals that you named. There's a sense of humility to say, like, I don't know it all. If this doesn't resonate with you, like, don't listen to me. You can just run it through the filters. Ram Dass says it all the time. Run everything that I say through the filter of your heart because I don't know it all.
Yeah.
And you may resonate with some, you may not with others, and that's the beauty of life. So there's this merging that needs to happen uh, in the process to say, um, actually, everything is spirituality.
Mm.
There's no like I have to step into it. Like you are it. We are
Yeah.
it. We don't have to like try to become something or transcend above some plane of existence. We are spiritual in our nature.
Mhm.
And so to learn how to merge the spiritual and the human is really what enlightenment is all
Yeah.
about.
It makes me think of the cult mentality where you need to think this way, this is the way it is, this is the only way it is. You need to follow these rituals in this path. And if you divert from this path, then you're ousted from this community versus be a free thinker, question me, question everything. If you don't understand, ask more, go on your own path. You're free to come back. And there's
Yep.
this push towards allowing that person to become their own individual and find their own truth and seek their own truth, maybe with some guidance. I'm not very eloquent with my words today.
No, I'm getting it though. And it's kind of starting to merge into another conversation of, faux spiritual leaders or faux gurus or whatever that may be. And I'm seeing the similarities that one of the major things to look at and look for in these leaders that we're seeking in this community is do they do a lot of spiritual bypassing?
Yeah.
Are we focused on doing it my way? Are we focused on get away from the negative feelings, cut out all toxicity from your life, kill your ego and rise above it? Are we focused on these? Because that's unrealistic. It's actually unhuman.
Yeah.
And that's a sign of spiritual bypassing. That's when people get a little bit of PTSD, I think, sometimes, or just fatigue, almost spiritual fatigue from
Mhm.
these leaders because they're teaching something that you're not supposed to do.
Yeah.
You're supposed to
Yeah.
deny your feelings. You're supposed to avoid uncomfortable situations
Yeah.
and kill your ego in these types of things. So I do think that it wears people out.
So there's so many people now that are looking for mentors, that are looking for somebody to help them along the path. And I think that there's a lot of benefit in that to follow maybe the teachings of Ram Dass or somebody like that, or to actually be in the presence of somebody that can guide us.
Yeah.
But then in those situations, we need to be really careful of what the pitfalls are that we could potentially fall into. And so I'd love to discuss some red flags so that we are finding the right person that can guide us, that isn't going to shove us in a box of this is the only way to do it, this is the only way to think, that allows that freedom of exploration so that we can explore their concepts, our own concepts. There's freedom to leave and come back. There's this
Yeah.
flow of energy, and there's not this putting oneself on a pedestal, like you said, or putting oneself above. And so, what are some of these
Yeah.
things that we can look for when we are seeking a mentor, when we are seeking a teacher?
I think hearing you say that, the first thing I want to talk about is the space that everyone should be coming into when they are looking for a spiritual mentor. And that is you already mentioned a couple of them. Open-minded, but also that this should be a lifestyle. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
We should be living a lifestyle of growth, of learning, of seeking teachers, of seeking spaces where we can be led and where we can lead also, so that we don't fall into some of these very common pitfalls and just seek out that one person that we can put on the pedestal that's going to teach us everything and save the day.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we go into that from the mindset, we do tend to fall for the very and this is what makes me think of very snaky, like the spiritual uh kind of snake, where it's like everything sounds really enticing. They're almost like lulling me into this community by their nice words, and yet something is fundamentally off. So a couple of things to look for, right, is to look behind the words. You already said
Mm-hmm.
this actually, and at their heart. Like,
Mm-hmm.
are their actions aligning with their words?
Yes.
Are they putting into action in their own life, and have proof of this in their own life, that they are living what they're teaching?
Mm-hmm.
And if not, then that's like a huge red flag. And it actually, Nikki, like, this is something that we should be looking at in every single relationship in our life. Is there
Yeah.
congruence
Yes.
of the heart and the words and the actions? Are all of these things lining up?
Yeah. Right. I agree.
And
Yeah.
another thing that I like to say to listen for is, if it sounds too good to be true,
Yes.
it probably is.
It is. It
Because here's
is.
the thing, right? Because here's the thing. We must come to a conclusion that we are also human, which means we have certain weaknesses. And good marketers, good people who speak like this will speak to those very weaknesses, and it will sound
Yes.
very, very much like you're touching on all of my senses and my desires and my temptations of all the things that I want to believe, not necessarily that are true.
Yes, that's a big one. That's a big trap to fall into that's really easy to fall into is somebody's marketing that they're guaranteeing that you're going to reach this state or that this is going to get released or this trauma is going to be let go or you're going to come out and you're going to be this person. And so it's coming from the person that's going in and is seeking these things and the other person is guaranteeing that they can provide it, which in itself creates this. I feel like we're all our own healers and our guides are supposed to help us figure out how to heal ourselves. And so
That's right.
it's seeking outside of ourselves for someone else to heal and get rid of something, to take something out, to remove it permanently, to
Yeah.
um promise that we're going to reach this certain state. And um and there can be some of that, but the healer needs to be the healer within. And then there's also a lot of wounded healers out there providing services. And so the healer that's providing services also has this responsibility to work with their own wounding
That's
first, because
right.
you can't do for others until you've done it for yourself
That's
first.
right. That's right. That's right. And so how do I know that, right? I want to look for signs then that they are using their own journey as a way to help others. I want to know that I want to see that they're human. I don't want to hear that your life is perfect, that you have it all figured out, all these things, because to me, that says danger right away.
Yeah.
If you have it all figured out and you've reached the spot of finality and completion, I'm quite worried. I'm
Yeah.
quite worried because, first of all, why are you here?
Yeah.
You've already transcended, so that's usually the end of things. Um, and second of all, that's another sign of spiritual bypassing, and that's the last thing we want in a leader of any, and
Hmm.
especially in this space.
Yeah.
Especially in this space. Yeah, that's huge. I mean, big words, right? Like using big words like total transformation, using big promises, making big promises, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is another red flag that you just mentioned there too. And another thing you touched on that I want to complete on is, um, what are we taught? What is the goal here at this thing that I'm seeking with this person? Are they going to do things for me, or are they
Mm-hmm.
going to show me my own power within and help me to really step into my true self, whatever
Yes.
that may be?
Yeah, because if we go to somebody and they heal us, or they take something out, or they remove something, then we're always going to be looking outside of ourselves in order to receive healing. And the best teachers are the ones that teach us how to do that for ourselves and guide us through that path, through their knowledge and experience of what they've gone through.
You know, you just said something and it made me have a thought. It provoked a thought in me that's like, actually, I think that there are a lot of people who, we're coming from this age of medications, doctors, give me the secret, secret pills, secret idea, whatever it may be. We want that. And so when we simply take that same mindset and transfer it over into the spiritual realm,
Mm-hmm.
well, we just made room for a lot of faux spiritual teachers who
Yes.
are really good marketers, not really walking the walk of spiritual,
Yes.
um, enlightenment in any way. In a way, that dynamic has worked. And I think that's why, it has gotten as big as it is, that we're seeing a lot of, dangerous circles, let's just say
Yeah.
that, dangerous circles, because people are actually looking for, I'm looking for my savior, looking
Yeah.
for somebody to fix me. And look, I get people in my office, Nikki, sometimes. I've literally had people say, fix me.
Mm-hmm.
And I
How
said,
disempowering for them.
that's the thing, right? That's the part that we really can't forget about, is that not only is that not possible, it's an illusion, right? I'm
Right.
not a, that's sorry. That power is reserved for God. um and that spirit moves through people in so many different ways. Um but like you just said, I'm taking away the essential, the fundamental piece and ingredient in all growth,
Mhm.
which is the self journey that we all go through in order to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, the feeling of peace and lightness and all that, that's actually the side effect of what
Yeah.
the real thing that we're doing here is. And that's the process, the journey.
Yeah, and I've seen these people that have, go through my 3-month course or go through my 4-month course, and you're going to go from here to here. I'm going to help you transform and transmute all of your pain and all your trauma and all your worries, and then you're just going to like
I love
pop out the other
transmute.
end. Yeah. And so that is bypassing, because you there's a lot of work that goes in between, and you can't just
Yes.
pop over from one side to the other within a very short amount of time. I guess unless something profound happens, like you have a near death experience or you have an incredible plant medicine journey and it just
Yeah.
shifts your perspective. Like it can happen, but it's not typical. And it's usually, even in those circumstances, it's a process of
Yes.
unfolding. And so anybody that's promising to fix something within a certain amount of ceremonies or a certain amount of time with a certain amount of money, I would see that that's a super big red flag.
Ye-
Yeah.
Yeah, and what you just described, there's actually a word for it. I think we talked about this before, but a sudden, spontaneous spiritual awakening or enlightenment is called a satori.
Hmm.
Satori, if you want to look that up. But it is a word that refers to a spontaneous spiritual enlightenment, and it's very rare, like you said.
Hmm.
And so the thing about those promises, right, is interesting, because we are, number one, we're setting on unrealistic expectations. But, and this is the strange part, right? Poor spiritual healer, because when you position yourself that way, Dr. Wayne Dyer talks about this. When you position yourself that way, you are responsible now for their success and their failure.
Hmm.
And so people don't even know what they're doing when they're saying this, because it's like, if I achieve whatever you're saying, then you're the one who did it, not me.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you are also the one to blame, not myself. right? So we're like outsourcing this
Mhm.
responsibility onto
Yeah.
the healer. No wonder we have so many burnt out healers that are like crashing and burning, or they have some very um, dysfunctional view of
Yeah.
themselves and the work and all of these things. Yeah, it's quite,
Yeah.
it is just quite the commotion.
I just got the weirdest analogy in my head. It's almost like hiring a personal trainer and you hire them to work out and lose the weight for you. And then you just reap the benefits of it. So you don't you have this expectation that you're not going to do much and they're going to do it all for you.
Well, I think physical fitness is the best analogy that we can ever make with
Yeah.
all of these things because it's so physical and it's so literal.
Mhm.
That again, coming back to that, right? My weight loss journey or my fitness journey is less about the number on the scale. Like that's the side effect of everything else that I have to do. I have to equip myself with discipline, commitment, hard work, being uncomfortable, being organized in some way. Those are the actual the big things that you're gaining through this experience. I want to bring it back to though these signs to look for. And you said something that I have on my list also, which is like, are these spaces, are they very expensive? Are they very
Yeah.
hard to get into? Is there a big barrier to entry? And there should always be a little barrier to entry because that's part of the process as well. That's part of
Yeah.
us committing to that. But am I charging like 5,000, 7,000, $10,000 for my retreat experience? Am I marketing it in a way that's more about the marketing and less about the you as a person? These are
Mhm.
also red flags. And we should talk about this, Nikki.
Yeah.
Your two different, very different experiences with psychedelic retreats.
Yeah, right, because I fell for the trap. I fell for the, absolutely stunning marketing and promoting, and everything spoke to me, a lot of promises, a lot of amazing images paired with music, and everyone I showed these to, they're like, "Oh my god, this retreat's gonna be
Those are gonna
incredible."
be, yeah.
So we paid a huge chunk of money, went to Mexico, took 10 days off, took that time off of work and from our families, and came back with a lot of trauma and a lot of darkness. And then I compare it to an ayahuasca circle that I've been into in the past here, where it's really affordable. They make it affordable for everyone. It's the same price for everybody. It's very focused on you and your experience. They're not doing tons of marketing and advertising. It's really word of mouth. And their intention is to hold space for people to heal.
Mm. And you know what stood out to me in that version of the story was it
Mhm.
was how that made them look rather than the actual experience of facilitating a true healing experience.
Oh my gosh, so much so that at the end, they had us dress up and they were gonna do this whole ceremony. And so they had us all wear white and they did like a quick photo shoot, and then they had us change in our colorful clothes and did a quick photo shoot, and then they used that for future marketing and promotion. And it was like we didn't even have that ceremony. And
You're using me basically in the same way that you got me here.
yes.
And I'm severely disappointed. But what happens then? We should talk about the red flags when you're in it and like what to do because it's not shameful to walk away or walk out
Uh-huh.
of an experience like that if you're getting those feelings and those vibes. But here's my point is if you market it that way and say, this is a feel good retreat. This is about
Yeah.
like whatever self-love and womanhood and community. And that's what you do. Amazing. Great. Good for you. At least you're being honest with it. At least people know what they're getting into. But when you do this whole manipulation tactic of we're doing something, but deep down I have a whole other agenda, then that's when the issues arise.
Yes, it was very clear to me in the middle of this retreat that there's this term called the wounded healer, and I feel like
Yes.
that's what was happening. And so I have compassion for the place that she was in, and yet also that was creating major harm to people, not just a little
That's
bit of
yeah.
harm. These people came back with PTSD. And so that is where it creates harm. And so I have compassion for it at the same time where I'm feeling this is really dangerous and reckless.
Yeah, I was going to say this sounds like a classic example of one of the red flags we just talked about, which is, does it really touch on all of my senses of what I feel like I would want?
Yeah.
Which is not always bad, right? Sometimes you're like, that's what I need. But if it's what it sounds like it was more tantalizing of a feeling than it was like I'm being pulled towards this.
Yeah. I mean, the strange thing about it, the really strange thing about it is that I feel that at the end of the day, I got exactly what I needed. There was a lot of lessons in that and a lot of growth and a lot of expansion. So it
That
is interesting and tricky.
that is it. Yeah. Yeah. In hindsight, it's always easier to see, right?
Yes.
But
Yes.
sometimes to be in that moment, that's why it is important to be aware. Another red flag that I wanted to point out that may even correlate to what we're talking about here is this kind of I'm more focused on highlighting myself and like talking about exemplifying my own power and my journey. Like, do they talk about themselves more often than
Yes.
they're talking about like you or how things may apply? And if it does come to themselves, like, how does that apply to me? Are you just using you as an example to like highlight yourself or
Yes.
in a way to relate to me? So that's another red flag that we can be looking for in these in a leader or anybody who's preaching about or speaking that they are walking this spiritual walk.
Yeah. And I feel like we're all on different levels of our path. And I feel like we're all um, in this together. And I think that where this topic becomes important is when we are seeking someone to hold our hand along the path.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter if you're in the beginning of your path or the been through the mud, but if you're looking for someone to walk with you and to help you, how are they doing that? And how do you find them? And how do you know that they're in alignment?
Hmm. Yeah, because at any given point in our journeys, we're going to have those various times when we do need that. To think that we don't is another form of spiritual bypassing.
Mm-hmm.
But I do want to talk about two more red flags that are very important on my list.
Yeah.
And that would be number one is, am I able to ask this person about their philosophies, what they're teaching, their techniques? Where did you get this from? Right? What do you mean by that? Why are we doing this? Or do they get super defensive about
Well,
it?
and when you talk to them, are you feeling as if they're a robot or are you feeling their heart? So they're sharing from their heart and there's a vulnerability and an openness, or is there like a disconnect?
Yes. Am I just repeating, regurgitating knowledge?
Yes.
Or do I know this? Like Albert Einstein says, a true master of anything will be able to explain it to a sixth grader or a 6-year-old.
Yeah. Yes. 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 Because sometimes
So,
somebody explains something. I'm like, what
yeah,
did
what
all
did you
that
even just
mean? Like it sounds really good and it's really eloquent, but what are you
Oh
saying?
man, I've had that experience so much, Nikki, where I'm just like, what did you just say?
Yeah. Yeah. It makes me think of because my husband's in the medical field, and if there's something that happens and the doctor comes in and they explain it in all this doctor jargon that people don't understand. And they're almost like robotic in the way that they share the information versus the doctor that comes in and is able to like break down that
Mm,
information and assimilate it in a way that it can translate so whoever's listening can actually absorb that information.
that's care. That just,
Yes.
to me,
That's
that just
connection.
comes, yeah, and it just comes down to very simply that. It's like I care about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And in this space, especially, well, and in doctor spaces too, I only want to be around people that care.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you will, as a side effect, feel connected to them because you feel their care.
Yeah.
And also, I want to note that it may not always feel rosy, dozy, daisy. Like, if you're with somebody who really cares, you're also going to receive the truth. And sometimes the truth isn't so nice to hear.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's like telling you things that you really do need to hear and that you need to do that you really don't want to do.
Well, and you could find this person, this mentor, this person that's leading a spiritual retreat, and they can be incredible, and you just might not jive with them. And so it's really important to listen to that. And so maybe everyone else jives with them, maybe all your friends jive with them, but if you don't, then that's okay. Then you can find somebody else.
So true. I'm glad you brought that up because here's the moral of that story, right? It doesn't actually matter if I'm the best, quote unquote, the best, most well-known healer in the world. And if you can't sign fully on board with that because there's some tension between our personalities, whatever that may be, then you're not going to receive the healing.
Yeah.
There's a huge factor in that where I may be a mediocre healer or just mediocre in experience or whatever that may be, but you really, really love me and trust me.
Yeah.
And guess what? A lot will happen.
Yeah.
And that comes back to the person again, like what you said, that a lot of the power then is in the power of the individual.
Yeah.
There are
Yeah.
some real barriers in the mind and in the heart that will restrict us from, going to super deep levels with somebody if we don't have if I don't feel fully safe here. Safety is a prerequisite to any deep level of healing.
Yeah, 100%. Right. It needs to feel safe in your body and your heart in every level of your cellular level. Just
Yeah.
feeling safe.
You
Well, and I
know,
also would like to point out that anyone that's a spiritual leader or, the Dalai Lama would say this, or anybody that's leading a retreat, they're also human. They have humanness. They're flawed. They're not perfect. They're going to make mistakes. That's why we don't want to put them on a pedestal because they'll 100% fall off and they don't want to be on a pedestal
yeah.
because they're human, and in that humanness we have blind spots. So me as a therapist, you as a therapist too, we have our mistakes, we have our blind spots, and so maybe somebody else can see them and we can't, and we're operating from that too, and we're just trying the best we can to find those blind spots, but we might not.
And the real thing that I want to see from those leaders is how do you handle your mistakes? How do you
Yeah.
handle your blind spots when they're illuminated? That's
Yeah.
what I really want to see because
Yeah.
it's
It's
part
not
of
perfect.
life. Something
Yeah.
you said earlier, though, triggered my last red flag here. And I love this one because this should be like a checks and balances when you're going into any space. Are they interviewing you? Are they really seeing where you are
Yes.
at
Do they
before they
care?
say yes? Exactly. Back to the care, right? Like, I always do a call, like an interview call. I just want to see if we both feel aligned. Even if you
Yes.
do and you're like, here, take my money. I actually
Yes.
refunded somebody one time, um, just because, as things were getting closer, we were having some conversations, and I just noticed, I was like, I think this is not the best fit for you, for us
Yes.
right now. I don't have anybody.
I feel like I pre-interview everybody that comes on this podcast for at least 15 minutes. And I feel like if I can connect with you in 15 minutes on a phone call, then we're going to be fine on the podcast. And there's some people I just don't connect with, and it's not personal, and it's not that they're bad. It's just that energy isn't there and it's just not working. And so I feel like if you were to have a call with somebody and they were invested in wanting to get to know you and wanting to know what it is you are seeking and what makes you tick, that pretty quickly you're going to have a sense of if it's a good fit or not.
Absolutely. I think within a matter of minutes, we
Yeah.
know, like, whether I want to proceed or not. And so that's another thing that you can look for. Can anybody and everybody sign up for this experience retreat, space, whatever? Now, of course, use critical thinking, use your best judgment. Like,
Hmm.
if this is just a workshop, a huge workshop or something, I suppose it doesn't matter as much.
Yeah.
But if this is a retreat where we're doing immersive, like, deep healing of things, and I'm being led by you, like actively led by you, then that's a totally
Hmm.
different story.
Well, and I'd want to know how many people are coming to the retreat too. Is it 20 or is it 100? Because that makes a difference on how personalized the experience is.
Yep. 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 I love the things you're saying because these are all conversations that I've had with people. And they'll ask me those questions. And I love it when they ask me those questions. How many people are there? Oh, perfect. Great question. I only have a max of 12 people.
Hmm.
Anything more, things start to get convoluted. And these questions should be very easy to answer.
Yeah.
If they're searching for the answer based on like what they think you want to hear, get out.
Hmm.
Get out.
I mean, I guess at the end of the day, when we're talking about all of this, it's about using our and trusting our own internal guidance to find what feels good. And so everything needs to be in alignment with our head and our heart and how our body's feeling. It all needs to line up in order to be a yes. And so it's learning to trust ourselves. And also, again, saying like, not everyone's going to be a fit, and it's not a reflection of you and it's not a reflection of me. It just is. It's just, we're not always
Mm-hmm.
meant to like gel, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But I think really trusting if something doesn't feel right, if something's not sitting well, if you keep having doubts that creep in, it's about listening to that and honoring that and not bypassing that.
Yeah. But I think that when we're not able to hear our senses correctly,
Mm,
because like the case with you, right? Then we still do need some real tangible things to check out. Like, okay, this is what I'm feeling. I feel very like tantalized by all of this. Let me just do a little bit of research, right? Let me research the person. Let me look at their website. Let me see if everything aligns with that. Do they embody this? Do they speak about the qualities of these practices often? So I think we also do need those real tangible things to look for so that we can
yeah.
check it out with our body. And the truth is that you said something very important, and this is for everybody to hear, that there is a base level, I think, of pre work that we should all be doing actively and have done, because there are some people that just don't even know how to listen to their body.
Yeah.
And how do I listen to, that my intuition, or is that like
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
else, so like maybe let's focus on that sort of self guidance and self safety, inner safety, and inner guidance first, because that will set you up way better to be able to have this. What you're really talking about is discernment.
Yeah. I feel like I have such good discernment, and yet this just happened last August. I would look at the Instagram and it would bring me to tears. It was so beautiful and it was so
Wow.
touching. I've like I never have that reaction. I literally ran upstairs and said to my husband, "I have to go to this retreat." Like it touched me so deeply. And because of that, I was just guided by that. Like, oh, I know. And I think I would have had this conversation like, what's your philosophy and how many retreats have you held and how often have you done this? And how do you hold space and what's important to you? And I would have just
Yeah,
questioned more. And so I would encourage people to do that, and anybody that's a good retreat host would give you the time because they're wanting it to be a good experience for you. Like they want that for you. They want you to heal. They want you to have a great experience. They want it to be a good fit. And I think I would have invested more time asking those questions, and yet I just followed my intuition and was like sure it was right. And in a way it was, because
I'm
I
sure. Yep.
got such valuable lessons. So it was an expensive lesson. But I would almost say it happened, like it needed to happen that way for me to take
For
back
you.
this, yeah, for
Yeah.
me. Um, but I hope that people can learn from my mistakes too.
So you just said something, and I want to make an analogy that, oh, this is so good. The way you described that just reminded me of the way that I help people navigate relationships, to where if it feels all like high and whoa and like very, up here when you're like, oh my God, I think this is the one. Oh my God, it's very, almost feels like very roller coastery, like tumultuous, like it's
Mm,
super, super high.
yeah.
And it usually ends up being the biggest and hardest lesson relationship, catalyst relationship, I call those, in your
Mm,
entire life. Whereas when you talk to people and you're like, I knew this person was the one, everything felt calm. Everything
Yeah.
felt peaceful. It felt, normal. Like I felt so just I can be myself. It felt like, yeah, this is just the obvious next step.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that is a really good way to weigh these types of decisions. Do I run upstairs to my husband and cry and say I have to go to this because it's bringing up such a strong emotion?
Yeah.
Or is it one of those things where I'm just like, I don't know, I just have this knowing.
Yeah. 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 True. Yeah.
Because a good rule of thumb is anything that's touching on that big of an emotion, that deep of an emotion, is probably touching on a wounded space, not from a healed space, or not
Yeah,
from a space of
100%.
yeah.
100%. Yes. It was like the words. I was like, oh, I need that. Yeah, 100%. Big lessons in that. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
like you said, for you it worked out. For other people that ended up with PTSD, I'm not so sure that was really necessary in the journey. Of course, it's going to be them on their own path, anyways. But it does hurt my heart a bit. It's a holy discontent of mine seeing this because it causes more harm, and all in the name of spirituality, which is just
Yeah.
so counterindicated. And it's from a narcissistic place. It's from a place of spiritual bypassing where I say, I'm up here, and therefore I am going to, because I have this information now, I can cling on to that, and I can totally skip doing my own excavation, my own inner deep
Yeah.
hard work, and then I can say that I'm in service to others and call it that instead of what it really is, which is avoidance.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, well, do you have any other words of wisdom before we wrap it up? That
Was
was
gonna
really
ask
great.
the same to you. I feel like, did we cover everything,
I
right?
feel like we did. That was really good. I think we got
Yeah.
all those red flags out.
I feel like we got that and some.
Yeah. So, how do people reach you? Can you share some of the things that you have to offer? And of course, I'll put that in the show notes as well.
Yeah, thanks. I'd love to. So I work a lot one-on-one, I don't even want to say this word, but in individual containers, more deeper work,
Hmm.
transformational work. So you can, any inquiry that you have for me, you can find out what my services are on my website, www.sparkflc.com. I also have a book out, a new book, Affirmations for a Peaceful Life. You can find that on Amazon. It is probably the number one place to just go look for it because it's easy
Nice.
to get it there. It's
Yeah.
also on all the other channels as well. And then on social media, please connect with me. My Instagram is Sarah_Spark Malone. My Facebook is Sarah Spark Malone. And I do host retreats. It's just right now I'm taking a small break because I am with child.
Yep.
So I'm just going to take a small break from retreats. But as soon as I'm
Oh,
back,
congrats.
that'll be next March for
Okay.
back at the retreats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed our first conversation and I enjoyed this one even more.
Say, I'm with you. I'm with you. I feel that we actually, got to know each other more on the first one. And this, I feel like, I hope that your listeners glean some real good golden nuggets from this. Hopefully, we can
Yeah.
save people from some of the pain that we've experienced.
Yes. Amen to that. Yeah. Well, thank you, Sarah. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Nikki.
Thank you for listening to the Connected Community Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, share, and subscribe. I can be found at www.nickyyoga.com, NICKYYYOGA.com. Until I see you again next week, I hope you have a beautiful day.